The one thing that we can count on in a fantasy series by George R.R. Martin is that characters will die. And while most might be fascinated by how these deaths might occur, today we are going to take a closer look at what happens to them after they're gone. In A Song of Ice and Fire, the traditions surrounding death can differ greatly, reflecting their unique and sometimes odd beliefs. So today, we are going to stare death in the face and examine what the various houses, regions, and religions in the world of Westeros believe about the afterlife, and how this is reflected in their funeral customs. And with that out of the way, let's get started. The act of consigning the body to a funeral pyre is a common practice among certain groups in the A Song of Ice and Fire universe, most notably House Targaryen. Despite converting to the faith of the Seven after conquering and uniting the Seven Kingdoms, House Targaryen, who are of Valyrian descent, continue to practice cremation, which is a tradition passed down from their ancestral roots in Old Valyria. During the time when the dragons of House Targaryen were alive, their pyres would often be lit by their dragons. But after the dance, the tradition would continue, though lit by more conventional means. The Duncan Egg novella The Hedge Knight mentions, "Other great houses might choose to bury their dead in the dark earth or sink them in the cold green sea, but the Targaryens were the blood of the dragon, and their ends were writ in flame." On the continent of Essos, the Dothraki believe that the stars in the night sky are the spirits of the valiant dead, who will ride forever through the night sky on a stallion made of flame. And when a horse lord dies, their remains are burned under the open sky, with the pyre being lit only after the first star appears. Additionally, a horse is also sacrificed, so that the deceased may ride it in the night lands, which is their version of heaven. But things get interesting if you are a Khal, because your mount isn't the only thing that will accompany you, because Dothraki tradition dictates that if a Khal dies, his blood riders should also accompany him in the night lands. Blood riders are the Khal's right-hand men, and are expected to live only long enough to exact revenge and escort the Khal's wife or wives to Vaes Dothrak to join the Dosh Khaleen. Once this duty is fulfilled, the blood riders will join their Khal in death. On that same continent are the Faceless Men of Braavos. The Faceless Men are a religious society of assassins who worship death and have specific practices with the dead that are described as closely guarded secrets. When one comes to the House of Black and White for the gift of death, the body is stripped, washed, and taken underground to the lower sanctum where the faces are removed. However, the fate of the rest of the body is a mystery, but there are hints that they might also practice cremation due to the lack of bodies stacking up in the House of Black and White. Although during Arya's training, she ponders this and starts to question the food they serve. Now, like those who believe that they will ascend to the stars, the fire worshippers of the Lord of Light believe that they will ascend as well. But instead of going to join their ancestors in some distant star in the night sky, the followers of R'hllor describe their heaven as a hall of light, where they believe they will sit beside their Lord and walk in his light until the end of their days. According to their faith, the act of cremation or ritual sacrifice is believed to burn away any darkness or sin in the soul, enabling it to rise free and pure to ascend to the light. Interestingly, before a body is given to the flames, the last death rite administered by the priest to the deceased is known as something called the last kiss. In the last kiss, the priest fills his mouth with fire and breathes the flame inside the deceased. According to Thoros of Myr, all Red Priests are required to perform this rite, and in the books, in the case of Beric Dondarrion, this caused him to come back from death. Although in the show, they depict this as Thoros simply praying over the body, and Melisandre attempting the same by giving Jon Snow a haircut. Not to be outdone, the Ironborn have a reviving kiss of their own. These inhabitants of the Iron Islands are devout followers of the drowned god, an ancient deity whose worship predates the arrival of the Andals. Priests of the drowned god perform a ritual called the Kiss of Life on all would-be priests who are initiated into the Brotherhood. The last kiss is basically the equivalent of a crude form of CPR, but in order for this to happen, the initiates are all killed through a ritual that involves being forcibly drowned, and once brought back onto land, they are given the Kiss of Life. This ritual is believed to form the basis for their common saying,
"What is dead may never die.
What is dead may never die, but rises again, harder and stronger. Stand."
Although unfortunately, for some initiates, the kiss is not always effective, and some just stay dead. Lucky for them, this is also considered good news, because a death at sea is considered a blessing from the drowned god, and ensures that they will enter their version of heaven, which is known as the Watery Halls, where they are believed to feast and celebrate for all eternity. And George R.R. Martin likens this to a wetter version of Valhalla.
But the Ironborn, will think you're having a big party with the drowned god under the sea, in his sort of wet Valhalla.
And it is because of this, the Ironborn bury their dead at sea, so that they can descend to the watery halls as well. Despite House Valyrian being of Valyrian descent, they practice a funeral custom more similar to the Ironborn. In Season 1 of House of the Dragon, we see this firsthand during Laena Valyrian's funeral. When a Valyrian passes away, their body is entombed in a casket, which is then allowed to sink into the sea so that they might rest in the eternal waters of the Merling King. Some of the words Vaemond uses during his speech also appear to be ritualistic. When translated from High Valyrian, they read, "We join today at the seat of the sea to commit Lady Laena Valyrian of House Valyrian to the eternal waters, the dominion of the Merling King, where he will guard her for all the days to come as she sets to sea in her final voyage. My gentle niece, may the wind be as strong as your back, and the seas as calm as your spirit, and your nets be as full as your heart. From the sea we came, to the sea we shall return." For reference, the Merling King is a deity that legend claims had gifted his fabled driftwood throne to House Valyrian to conclude a pact, although it is unclear in the history books what the pact was in reference to, though the throne of House Valyrian does stand as a testament to these claims, and the fact that he is still revered in their funeral customs speaks to this claim, as well as their connection to the sea itself. Out of pure speculation, it's possible the pact might have been in regard to consigning their remains to rest in his kingdom rather than the flames. As the Merling King is one of the deities found in the House of Black and White, and all of the deities found in the House of Black and White are those that are revered in death, which could explain why House Valyrian engages in this practice rather than the cremation that is typical of those of Valyrian descent. The Tullys of Riverrun also honor their deceased with a highly ritualized practice of both cremation and water burial. When a Tully dies, their remains are sent down the river on a boat, and while the boat is adrift on the water, it is lit on fire by a flaming arrow. House Tully believes that since they draw their strength from the river, it is the river that they must return, when their lives had run their course, and descend to their own watery halls, where the Tullys hold eternal court, with schools of fish as their last attendants. In Westeros, south of the Neck, the most commonly practiced faith is the faith of the Seven, which is partly inspired by the Christian Trinity, and perceive their God as having 7 aspects, 3 male and 3 female, and the 7th has no gender, and is referred to as the Stranger, who symbolizes death. Upon death, followers believe that they will face judgment by the Father, and be directed to either the 7 heavens or the 7 hells. The concept of the 7 hells seems to draw heavily from Dante's Inferno and its 9 circles of hell, with each of the 7 hells being deeper, and the specific hell one is sent to in the afterlife being determined by the sins committed in this life. Followers of the faith also believe in the existence of something described as the Father's Golden Hall, while the Lord of the 7 hells, which is potentially their version of the devil, is mentioned in the Dunk and Egg novella. where a character's wife had believed that Tywin Lannister's grandmother had traded her unborn children to the Lord of the Seven Hells in exchange for learning dark magic. Although it is unclear who this Lord of the Seven Hells is, whether it is the stranger who represents death, or if this is their version of the devil, or both. Now, when a follower dies, their body is entrusted to the Silent Sisters, who are also known as the Stranger's Wives.
Let the Silent Sisters ready the prince for his final journey.
This order of women in the faith of the Seven have taken vows of chastity and silence, and are dedicated to the service of the stranger. They cover their faces, leaving only their eyes visible. Their primary role is to collect and prepare the bodies of the dead. In doing so, they perform a ritual cleansing and a form of embalming, where the internal organs are removed and replaced with fragrant herbs and salts to preserve the body and mask the smell of decay. After the body is prepared, a wake is held where a friend or a family member stands vigil. But if the deceased dies far from home, their flesh is removed from the body, and it is only their bones that are returned to their family. During the funeral, a septon prays over the body, asking the Father to judge them justly. The body is then buried or placed in a tomb. A common resting place for kings and lords is beneath their sept.
Would you like to see where the last Targaryens are buried?
Are you sure Lady Marjorie doesn't find all this a bit macabre?
Now the Lannisters keep their tombs within the mountain of Casterly Rock, in a place called the Hall of Heroes, where the costly armor worn by 100 Lannister knights, lords, and kings stand eternal guard. The Giscari of Slaver's Bay also inter their nobles in crypts, and while their belief in a sort of heaven is uncertain, we do see that there is the belief that the harpy, which is a symbol of their culture, is believed to drag souls down to hell. But the most recognizable crypts in our story are the crypts of Winterfell. The Starks of Winterfell follow the religion of the old gods, inter their dead in the crypts beneath their ancestral home. The cavernous vault is believed to be larger than Winterfell itself, and the older Starks are buried in deeper and darker levels. The lowest level is said to be partially collapsed and inaccessible, and within the crypts each tomb is marked with a statue of the likeness of the deceased kings of winter and the lords of Winterfell, with a large stone direwolf carved at their feet, and an iron sword placed across the statue's lap, which is believed to keep their vengeful spirits of the dead at rest. Interestingly, House Bolton is also known to have their own crypt under the Dreadfort, although little else is known regarding their practices. But the most common practice for those who follow the religion of the old gods is burial, and these burial practices vary, from piling the earth high over the body to make large earthen barrows, as the giants and the earliest of the first men of bygone eras did, to the use of stone cairns, as was done for the forebears of House Blackwood, to the practice of burial in a godswood or underneath a tree. For the men of the North, it's not about how they are remembered in death, but how they are remembered in life, and the North remembers. You see, the followers of the old gods believe the weirwoods are receptacles for the spirits of the old gods, and as long as the weirwoods keep their silent watch, they will never be forgotten. All in all, the treatment of the dead in the A Song of Ice and Fire universe reflects the diverse cultures, religions, and beliefs of their inhabitants, from the fiery cremations of the Targaryens to the solemn crypts of the Starks. Each practice tells a story about the people who follow it and their views on life, death, and what lies beyond, which Maester Aemon tragically reflects on as he lay dying. That I will leave you with. I am too old. I am dying, Sam. Tears ran down his blind white eyes at that admission. Death should hold no fear for a man as old as me, but it does. Isn't that silly? It is always dark where I am, so why should I fear the darkness? Yet I cannot help but wonder what will follow when the last warmth leaves my body. Will I feast forever in the Father's golden hall, as the Septons say? Will I talk with Aeg again, find Daeron whole and happy? Hear my sisters singing to their children? What if the horse lords have the truth of it? Will I ride through the night sky forever on a stallion made of flame? Or must I return to this vale of sorrow? Who can say truly? Who has been beyond the wall of death to see? Thank you so much for watching, and if you like this video, please be sure to do all the things. Like, comment, and subscribe. They really do help the channel. Thank you so much for watching.